Okay, hi everyone. Sorry for starting a wee bit late. Yeah, things and stuff happened. So, fun. Some reason, my internet is saying it's really low, and I'm not sure what's happening there. So, fingers crossed, my internet's not going to shit out tonight. That'd be a good fucking start to this kind of thing, eh? Also, apologies, I'm not going on camera tonight. I know I normally do for my live streams on the Wednesday, but in the process of bleaching my hair, and it is like drenched in conditioner at the moment, having a hair mask. So yeah, I mean, I have some shred of dignity left, apparently. Who'd have thunk it? So how is everyone anyway? I know two of you I've already been chatting to on the Discord anyway. Hey Troy, you're right, love. I did no such thing. And besides, even if you did see me vent, I'm a fucking engineer. Yeah, I'm just getting to the story bit. I'm stalling for time. Had to re-fucking download Reddit onto the tablet. I've got a bad feeling it's fucking done the wrong one. Yeah, okay. Change of plan. Right, get that up, get my glasses out, and I'll read it off my computer. It'll be fine. We're running a professional setup here. Professional, I tell you. Right. So, no. Where is it? Outcomes. Here we go. So, this is the first one. And it is actually rather a long one. So, that's it. I've just seen you guys saying I was muted. When did it get muted? Oh, for fuck's sake. Okay. Yeah, not me reading half the fucking story while that was going on. Yay. And, hello. Hello. Okay, I'll start again. It was only fucking dozen paragraphs. It's alright, at least you didn't hear me make lots of mistakes. That was, yeah. Right, sorry, my brain's a bit over the shop today. Pain being a bitch and other shit happening. All fun and games. Okay. Oh, you're right, Sydney. How are you, darling? And I saw a different name. Mark, yes. You're right, Mark, sweetie. How are you, darling? Yeah, I accidentally was muted. See, I tried to do a thing and, like, kind of, you know, up the, like, fucking, oh, God knows, the words of my stream, you know, putting a little video in, some nice background ambience, and I even fucked that up. Woo! But yeah, so this is actually quite a long one. But hang on, since it is long. Okay. There we go, there's that. And really? Okay, there we go. Right. So please do let me know if the mic's coming in too loud for you guys. I am currently using like the new one I got. And you know, I'm still learning to get the levels right on it. You're right, Professor Curious. So, this story that is the best analogy I've heard in a fucking long time. Love it. Oh, I hope things get a bit calmer for you, hun. Right. So, this is Catch a Killer. When the box arrived, Emily was thrilled. She had been waiting for this particular package since March, and at long last it was here. Emily had been trying to get it into one of these cold case box services for a while. Hunter Killer, Cold Case, sleuth kings. She'd requested to join them all, but all Emily had got back were apology letters and promises that they would contact her when they had room. The folks at Catch a Killer had placed her on their tentative waiting list, which sometimes took months, and she hadn't expected to be added to the list for quite some time. It was hard to get added. They only approve a few hundred people a year. There were also one of the most popular groups. The service was your typical monthly subscription box, where they sent a cold case that the small group you found yourself a part of tried to solve. They would send clues a few at a time, a slow drip of evidence that would lead the group to the end result, and they would follow the trail to an ultimate conclusion. As she bought the box inside, Emily felt giddy with anticipation. However, some of it was tempered when she stopped to look at the box. The label said to Catch a Killer, but the address label was torn off, and the box looked funny. If this was their way of creating ambience, then Emily felt it had done a great job. The box was battered and dirty, the clear tape around it looking thick and yellow, and the letter was pieced together out of newspaper clippings. It was a nice touch, if not a little cliché. The letter inside was no exception. The whole thing was made of magazine and newspaper letters, meticulously assembled by hand. At least it appeared as such. Emily couldn't imagine how much time this had taken whoever had put it together, especially if they had to build more than a few of them. Emily had to applaud their commitment, but it wasn't something that seemed feasible long term. She would be surprised if this level of detail persisted, and took the note out of the box. This is the case of the West End Tooth Fairy. He has a kill count of around 26 and was most oh my god. Prodigious, between 2019 and 2021. His first victim was Ms. Marie Klein, a retired school teacher who lived alone. It took the police almost 4 years to place her as his victim. Only then, because his pattern began to surface. She was stabbed 15 times, most of them in her chest, and a smile was carved across her mouth from ear to ear. No forensic evidence was discovered at the scene, no sign of forced entry, and she was left in her favourite chair in the living room. No one was charged in her death, and only one item was ever reported missing from the victim: the bottom and top plate of her dentures. Emily read it over a few times, but couldn't figure out what she was supposed to be looking for. This letter was less of a case file and more of a story. Emily had read a few articles about how the information was disseminated and then picked over by the community, but this read more like a creepypasta. She wondered if this might be one of those things where each group member got a different piece of the puzzle, but that was another point of confusion as she looked through the box. As she looked in the box, Emily saw a plastic baggie with a pair of pliers inside. She took them out hesitantly. The red around the teeth of the pliers looked pretty convincing. Emily gave them a once-over, finding them a pretty good prop for the price, before returning to the box. Other than the pliers and the note, the box was empty. There was no group code or information of getting up with the rest of her team, and after a thorough search, she found nothing. Emily shrugged, not too upset about it. They had probably forgotten to add it, and she figured that a quick trip to the internet would get her in contact with her group. She was still excited about her quick admittance to the group and hoped to be on the site to see what she could, and hopped on the site to see what she could find. A little while later, Emily closed her laptop with a huff of frustration. She had checked every group, but no one was following the Tooth Fairy case. No one seemed to know what she was talking about either, and it was starting to make her wonder. Maybe the others would sign on soon. Maybe she had gotten her box a little early. In the end, she set up a room for the Tooth Fairy case, figuring the others would find her, and decided to go to bed. She'd sign on tomorrow and find that they had discovered her, and then the game could begin. Instead, she woke up to find another dodgy package on her front porch, and only a few messages in the room she had started, none of them helpful. The people who had found the room appeared to have used her post as an excuse to belittle her. The 3 or 4 users who had left comments were quick to remark that the Tooth Fairy case was little more than an urban legend and not likely to be something Catch-a-Killer would tackle. They made fun of her for even suggesting that she had received a case file on this one, and decided she must be trolling. Today's box looked like it had gotten wet, and the cardboard was dark and distorted. Emily huffed as she deleted their comments, setting the box on the table as she cleared her inbox. This is what she got for asking for help on the internet. Most of these people were just shut-ins, with little more to do than bother her, and she knew she shouldn't take it personally. Even so, Emily reflected, it was frustrating that none of the others who'd received the case files had hopped on to share information. As she sat grumbling at the computer screen, she found her eyes straying to the box and finally decided to open it. The material felt as damp as she'd expected, but that only added to the mystery. It hadn't rained last night, or for the last few days, and she couldn't believe anyone would have delivered her package in such a condition. And why was it here so early? It was near noon, but the mail didn't usually run until 2 or 3 in the afternoon. The box had been waiting for her when she opened the door, leading her to believe that it had been dropped off much earlier. Inside the box was another of those strange notes, the letters made of magazine clippings, and an old envelope she thought might contain pictures. His next 3 victims were the Hughes children, Mary, Shelley, and Clark, ages 12, 10, and 8. Coming in through a window in their bedroom, he tied them up and made them watch as he stabbed them to death from oldest to youngest. Each of them was stabbed 20 to 30 times. Their parents found them the next morning, both having slept through the night as their children died mere feet away. The oldest child was found to have her lower canines removed, the middle child her bottom incisors, and the youngest was missing his bottom premolars. The teeth were believed to have been taken as a trophy, and that was when the police started calling the killer the Tooth Fairy. The press wouldn't start using that name until much later. As she took out the pictures, Emily felt her blood run cold when she flipped the top back. There were 12 pictures inside, all seemingly taken with a Polaroid camera. All of them were of crying children, their hands tied behind them and their mouths stuffed with whatever had been at hand. The girls appeared to be older than their brother, all of them bearing the same sandy hair and hazel eyes. And as the pictures carried on, Emily could see the fearful children becoming broken children. Their pyjamas reddened, their wounds seemed to grow with each snapshot, and by the end, all three were lying on the carpet together. As their blood seeped into thick shag, Emily felt the pictures slip from her numb hands. What was this? It was a little too much. If this was someone's idea of a joke or a game. She had wanted to be part of this game, but if this was the level they were playing at, she wasn't sure she was up to it. These Polaroids looked real, like something had taken instead of something made. As Emily held them, they felt dirty in her hands. She put them back in the box and picked up her computer as she tried to discover anything about the case. She was being drip-fed. This was the second box she'd received that felt more like a love letter to the killer and less like a case file. There were no clues to follow, no breadcrumbs to lead her to an outcome, just harrowing stories to listen to that ultimately didn't tell her anything. If this was how it was, she really needed to see if anyone else had received the clues she was failing to find. The forum offered more veiled insults, and Emily huffed as she closed the laptop again. With no words from the admins and no help forthcoming from her fellow investigators, she couldn't do much but speculate. In the end, she dumped the contents of the first box into the second one and threw the In the end, she dumped the contents of the box into the first one and threw the new box away. When her eyes kept darting over to it as it sat on the top layer of garbage in the can, she pulled it all out and took it to the outside can. She couldn't stand the way it seemed to be watching her, and as she came back up the steps of the porch, she stopped in her tracks as she saw the last thing she expected to see. Another cardboard box covered in old yellow tape was on her welcome mat, sitting like a steaming pile of fresh foreboding. Emily looked around, suddenly not feeling so safe standing in front of her own house. How had she missed it? Surely it hadn't just appeared between her leaving her front door and putting the garbage in the can. It had taken a matter of minutes, 2, 3 at the most. and someone would have had to place the box quickly and quietly in order to get it here in the interim. Someone like a serial killer who stole people's teeth and kept them as a trophy? Emily shook the thought off and reached down to pick up the box. She had just missed it on her way out. Must have stepped right over it, but that didn't stop her from locking the deadbolt and throwing the chain across the door. She took the box to the dining room table, but it would be quite a while before she found the courage to open it. She looked at it as she cleaned her house, returning to it a few times throughout the day. She didn't want to open it. She was honestly afraid of what might be inside it, but it still hung over her like an omen. As scared as she was, it was a very tantalizing mystery, and Emily loved a good mystery. As the sun went down and the shadows grew tall in her living room, Emily was helpless to stop herself from ripping off the tape. The box had the same wet, warped look as the others had borne, and as the tape came off, Emily was greeted by another of the handmade notes and a long metal tool that made her grit her teeth. It was an ice pick, and someone had clearly used it roughly. The end was dented, the metal flouring up and around the point of impact. The tip was malformed. That angry exclamation almost as damaged. What? The end was dented, the metal flaring up and around the point of impact. Yeah. Right, I can't read both of those. It's like they've had two sentence thoughts of a way to talk about the tip and forgot to remove one. Both of them are good, just not together. It was an ice pick, and someone had clearly used it roughly. The tip was malformed. That angry exclamation almost as damaged as the butt end, and it helped the red find its way into the porous metal that sought to drink it. It had worked its way into the crevices, and the dark red made the tool look all the more grotesque. Hi, dog. Has anyone else popped in since I last talked? No. Okay. Wait. Was it? No. How are you, dog hun? Hope you're good. Sorry, I am trying, but also dyslexic, so reading aloud isn't always the easiest for me. The fourth victim was Dr. Reynolds of the The fourth victim was Dr. Reynolds of the Norvez Free Clinic. Posing as a homeless man, he came in before operating hours and killed the good doctor before his staff could arrive. The Tooth Fairy had chosen Dr. Reynolds carefully, the two bearing a striking resemblance. It was easy for him to pose as Dr. Reynolds and continue to see patients. The next 12 victims were homeless people at the clinic. People he invited to come in after hours. The cause of death for all was the same as Dr. Reynolds: a single puncture wound to the side of the neck. From these victims, the Tooth Fairy completed his collection of bottom teeth. She added the pick to the box of other things before slipping it into the hall closet and going to sit in her room. Sorry, hang on. Oh, I gave you. Sorry about that. I was getting a phone call and a message and I wasn't sure if there was something happening bad or not. It's all good. It's just my friend wondering when we can meet up. Hi, Grover Mum. You right, sweetie? Oh, shit. I'm so sorry. It's been so long you're in there, hon. That's gotta suck. Okay. She added the pick to the box of other things before slipping it into the hall closet and going to sit in her room. Suddenly, the living room was too open, the windows too exposing for Emily's taste. She sat in bed, trying not to think about the boxes and the mystery surrounding them. The more of them she received, the more she had to remind herself that this was just something cooked up by the company. It became harder and harder to justify to herself, though as the contents became more graphic. She had read a lot of forum posts before signing up, and none of them seemed like the experience she had read about. The cases were spooky sometimes, but there was always a group of people to help you solve them. Doing this alone was making her anxious, and the clues weren't really pointing her towards a suspect. This was reading more like a story and less like a case. She wasn't sure what to take away from this besides the crawling anxiety surrounding her. She had checked the group again and found nothing but more people making fun of her for suggesting Catch a Killer would cover something like the Tooth Fairy. It's not even real, it's an urban legend. No, it's real, but the group only handles cases with suspects and evidence. The killer never leaves anything behind. The killer's too high profile to let a bunch of amateurs mess it up by stepping on what little evidence they have. It was pages of stuff like that, but nothing helpful. None of the admins had posted either, and Emily supposed they must be on vacation. They couldn't weigh in on forum topics. They couldn't answer her questions, and it seemed like they couldn't be bothered to do much at all. Emily set her phone on the nightstand and got ready for bed, deciding that she wouldn't open any more of the packages until someone else messaged the group to say they had received their packages. She needed help. She needed some perspective. and she wasn't going to get any in this echo chamber. As she fell asleep, she thought that at least it shouldn't be possible for them to send a fourth box so soon. It had probably been a fluke to send her 3 so close together, and she drifted off, hoping there might be someone to help her when the fourth arrived. She woke up the next morning to the sound of birds and the gentle chimes of her phone alarm. Emily felt a little better in the light of day. The megrims of the night before, lost with dawn filling her living room. She booted up her computer, intending to get some work done today before her boss called and complained about her lack of progress lately. First, however, she wanted breakfast. As the eggs and bacon sizzled in the pan, Emily felt all the anxiety of the night before dripping away. She had made too much out of all this. She always psyched herself up too much over these things. Between quarantine and working from home, she'd had too much time to mull over these dark corners. It might be time to get some of this under control. Maybe the box service was a little too much. She should cancel it and try again some other time. Yay! Hey Oxlove, how are you? She had taken her phone out to do just that. Her breakfast balanced on top her coffee cup when something caught her eye in the peripheral. She was standing in the foyer, heading for her little office she had set up in the living room, when the spot found its way into her peripheral. She imagined she could hear the tendons in her neck creak as she turned to see if her fears were correct, and felt the plate wobble as the coffee shook in her hand. It couldn't be. It was 7 in the morning, and the mail hadn't even thought about running yet. The package was sitting on the front porch in the center of the welcome mat, leering at her through the glass of the front door. She stood there for a count of 30, her mind whirling at the sight of the large brown box. But in the end, she didn't drop her food or dissolve into a puddle of terror. She turned away from the door and went to her desk. If she meant to continue buying box services, eggs, coffee, or paying the mortgage on her house, she needed to do some work. As she set about her work, Emily found that her eyes just wouldn't stay off the package on the stoop. She couldn't see it from her desk. There was a wall in her way, but the mirror in the foyer showed her a perfect view of it from her chair. She had placed it there to see people when they came up, and now it appeared less convenient than she'd thought. She tried to keep her mind on medical coding, but it was difficult with the non-existent eyes of the package on her. Her mind itched to see what was inside, little as she wanted to. It would be another horror show, she was certain, and it would be for her alone, since no one else seemed to be sharing it with her. Around 11, Emily finally sighed in frustration and pushed the keyboard away. She had done almost nothing in the 4 hours she'd been working, and the sooner she got the package out of her mind, the better. She got up to go bring the package in, but as she moved into the foyer, she stopped again. There was a second package, sitting in the shadow of the first. She stared at it, her mind reeling as she pondered how it had gotten there. She'd had a perfect view of the door. There was no way that anyone could have snuck up and delivered the package in broad daylight without her seeing them. She stepped towards the door, feeling the tug of curiosity, but stopped as she saw the obvious answer. The second box was a little smaller than the other one. In her apprehension at the sight of the box, she had overlooked the second one. That was all. Just a failure to notice. Yeah, right. The thought made her feel secure enough to turn away from the door and go make some lunch. She was coming back with her sandwich and a fresh cup of coffee when she looked again and saw a third box perched on top. She had just been thinking that she might be able to get some work done, but seeing that third box, that dark brown cardboard monstrosity, she began to doubt the web of excuses she had crafted. If they could sneak in a third box, they could have easily slipped in the second. If it hadn't been there, they had slipped it in while she wasn't looking and delivered it without a sound. She returned to her computer long enough to find the contact information of Catch a Killer and called their customer service line. This was getting out of hand, and if no one was going to return her messages, she'd just go to the source. Master Incorporated, this is Jana speaking. How may I direct your call? Emily wet her lips, not expecting such a quick response, but ploughed on before her anger could cool. Yes, I'm trying to reach someone with the Catch a Killer box service. This was the number they had listed online, but the bubbly woman on the other end cut her as, Of course, one moment please. 30 seconds of canned music later, and another far too happy young woman picked up and asked Emily how she could help her. Yeah, I recently signed up for your service, but I think there's something wrong. I received at least 6 packages in the last 3 days, and it's always at random times. I also can't seem to find anyone online that's part of the same group as me, and I think I'm getting parts of the case that require other parts to solve. The level of detail is really impressive on the boxes, but the volume is becoming a little creepy. I think I'd like to be put in another group or just cancel the service altogether, please. The woman and I seed through the whole exposition, the background sound of clicking keys making Emily grit her teeth. I'm terribly sorry you're dissatisfied with our service, ma'am. We can absolutely issue you a refund and cancel your service. Feel free to keep the materials you've already received for your troubles. Do you know which file you were assigned to? It's the Tooth Fairy case. The clicking abruptly stopped. You must be mistaken, ma'am. That's not a case we'd offer at this time, and not one we plan to offer in the near future either. Emily had been pacing but stopped as the woman's words fell on her like a piano. That's the information I've been getting in the mail. All the boxes contain these little handmade letters, pictures, and descriptions of the murders. Emily gave her the info she'd filed in on the website, and after a few minutes of clicking, she could swear she heard the woman's teeth grinding together. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but you aren't on our client list. You're on our tentative approval list, but we haven't taken your payment for the current cycle of case files." Emily stopped in the foyer, glancing fitfully out of the front door as she tried to make sense of this all. There was now a fourth box on top of the other one, and as the golden afternoon set over the house, she felt a chill creep up her spine. "What does this mean?" she whispered, not daring to speak too loudly. "It means that whoever's sending you those packages isn't anyone in our office." Emily was speechless, and as the woman called to her from the other end of the phone, she let it slip out of her hand and tumble to the hard wood. Emily wanted to walk away and call the police, but her curiosity was piqued. It was the same curiosity that had led her to sign up for the service in the first place, but now it had led her into a mystery that she hadn't been prepared for. As she wrapped her hand around the doorknob, she knew there would be no going back. She knew there'd be no going back if she looked in those boxes. If she cut the tape and saw what lay inside, she'd never be able to go back again. She opened the door, poking her head out like a groundhog from its hole. She expected something to be waiting out there for her, but the porch was empty except for the boxes. She juggled the 4 of them into her arms and brought them inside, closing the door and twisting the deadbolt before taking them to her bedroom. She left the phone in the foyer, taking all the boxes and locking the door to her bedroom behind her. Spilling them onto the bed, she wondered what order they would be in. Looking at them again, she realized each was numbered with a thick squirt of magic marker. Taking the largest, the one with the childish 4 on it, she strained a little at the weight of something. Something rumbled angrily inside. And as she slid her penknife over the tape, she was unsurprised to find a roofing hammer inside. Like the chisel. Chisel? I thought she said the last one was ice pick. So, like the chisel, the head was splattered with a deep red stain. And the tines at the end were likewise painted. What had the third box said? His victims had been killed by blunt force trauma to the base of the skull? No. After seeing the pictures of the children, she doubted he could contain himself from cutting and slicing them after the fact. He'd wanted to kill them quickly before they could give him away, but he still wanted the thrill of slicing them up. The note inside was quite illuminating. His next 3 victims were an old fellow looking to have some teeth extracted, a census taker that he suspected might be working for the police, and a private detective that ultimately caused him to abandon the free clinic. The detective had a friend in the local police force, a friend whom he had told before he went to investigate the rumours of missing people at the clinic. The tooth fairy avoided the raid meant to catch him and added 6 more teeth to his collection. From the old man, he took the front incisors. From the census taker, the top 2 incisors. The top 2 incisors next to them. Finally, from the nosy investigator, he took the top canines and left on a bus as the police raided his hunting ground. She paused, opening the 5th box. She had heard a sound from the living room. She wanted to check, but the knife made such a satisfying sound on the tape as it opened it. Inside was a business card for someone named Carol Barner. The legend beneath proclaimed her to have been the webmaster for Mazer Inc. And Emily suspected she already knew what the note would tell her. How easy it had been for the packages to arrive at her house, almost like someone had her name and address. She thought again that she had heard a noise from the living room, the breaking of glass, or the crunch of a boot crushing something fragile. It might even be the breaking of a phone as someone stepped on it after carelessly left in the foyer. She read the note quickly, wondering how much time she had left. His next victim was Carol Barner. Carol was selected at random, a crime of convenience that turned into a very helpful. Carol was his neighbour, someone who worked from home as the pandemic raged. Carol liked to work late into the night, and her keyboard was so very loud. He had tried to be good, tried to lay low for a while as he settled into a new town, but the clacking was driving him mad. One night, as he watched 2 o'clock roll by with no reprieve, he took the continued noise as a sign from above. He broke into her apartment, and she never even noticed over the sound of her keyboard until he stopped the tapping forever. In doing so, he discovered what it had all been for and found a way to finish his work without the hassle of finding more victims. He discovered the database she'd been working on, and after taking the premolars he needed, he set to work. Her hand shook as she opened the next box, the knife threatening to cut her as it jittered across the adhesive. She could hear him as he moved through the house, being less than quiet as he yanked open doors and cabinets. He knew where she was. He had to. But this was all a thrill for him. He wanted her good and scared before he went on about his business, and Emily had to still her hands as she reached the note that lay atop. The flyer with the red stain distorting the K in killer made it run like a wound. His next 8 victims were just everyday crime junkies people who loved to research and speculate from the comfort of their homes. He had a large pool to choose from, and it was easy to select those who wouldn't be missed and would take time to be discovered. Glenn Howe was a freelance coder with a passion for cold cases. Linda Merrill was a divorced housewife whose children had flown the nest, leaving her plenty of time to consume true crime content. Courtney Powell and Linda Kane were roommates, and it was a wonder the 15 cats in their apartment hadn't gotten to them before the killer did. John Boyd, Claire Keane, Regan Summers, Casey Gear, they all took the bait and became true crime content all of their own. Each kill swelled the legend of the Tooth Fairy. Each added to his name, to his tally, and each gave him another piece of the puzzle. As the police searched for him, looking for anything they could help them discover his identity, the Tooth Fairy found the last piece he needed, his final victim. The knob rattled, turning slowly until it hit the lock. Whoever was on the other side didn't kick, didn't yell, didn't fret. He knew they had all night. He knew she had nowhere to go since there were no windows in her room, and there was no escape except through the door that was now standing in front of. No one was going to come for her, and it was just the two of them until the matter was resolved. He had to get inside anyway. Emily had all his tools. He had sent her everything he would use to make her another case file for some other true crime fan to speculate over. Would they wonder how she had been so easily caught? Would they question the validity of such a killer? Maybe the sheer idiocy of it all would help cement the legend of the Tooth Fairy into something told around the campfires and under blankets as flashlights lit ghostly faces. Sometimes that was what really made the story. The idea that something like that could never happen to you. She opened the last box as he moved about her house like a spiteful spirit, clearly savouring the moment. When she took out the letter, she yelped in surprise and let it fall to the floor. The last grisly totem fell to the carpet, clacking merrily as Emily watched. It all made sense now. The name, the trophies, the order of the theft. He had needed them. He needed to complete his masterpiece. He had to have a complete set. Otherwise, it wouldn't look right. She tore her eyes away from the grim spectacle and looked at the letter that was likely to tell her of his last victim. A victim she knew all too well. His last victim was Emily Colney. Emily fancied herself a true crime enthusiast. She petitioned multiple services since the beginning of the pandemic, but was never invited to join their groups. She wrote all this in her application to catch a killer, and when it pinged on the database, the Tooth Fairy decided to make her dream come true and give her the true crime experience of a lifetime. Emily Colney, the perpetual shut-in on Hawthorne Street. She would have the distinction of being the Tooth Fairy's last victim. After her, he would break his pattern and thus become harder to link to crimes that would come after hers. So thank you, Emily. Thank you for helping me complete my masterpiece. The door shuddered, and Emily dropped the note. It fluttered down to land on the grisly trophy on the carpet, and she was forced to put her hand far too close to it as she picked up the note. It was a mishmash, a golem, a creation of love and hate, and it hurt her to look at it. It seemed that Mary's denture plates had been put to good use, and the teeth within were as different as they were misshapen. He had lovingly set them into the plastic, and they looked like an animal trap just waiting to bite. A hand slid through the hole in the door, grasping the lock with a smooth and precise twist as he opened the door and let it swing inward. She saw him then, rising to his full height as he filled her doorway, like a ghoul in a cast-off coat. He was massive, his head looking grotesquely small as it peered down from between his huge shoulders. She felt the hammer slip from her hands as the smell of him wafted over her, the aroma of dirt, campfires, old chemicals, and ancient blood. She didn't start screaming until he smiled at her, his spitty, toothless mouth revealing... She didn't start screaming until he smiled at her, his spitty, toothless mouth revealing empty gums. Gums waiting for what lay on the floor between them. Gums waiting for Emily to complete their reward for years of patience. And that's that one. Tooth Fairy was the main antagonist in Red Dragon. But I don't think they're talking about, like, the same one. Although it's likely that's where they got the idea of the dentures and whatnot from. No. Super Ghost is right, that's Darth Shrek. Everyone knows Darth Shrek had the high swamp. Did anyone else find themselves getting extremely fucking annoyed at Emily? Oh no. Okay. See, I think after box 2, when I found, like, those pictures, I would have called their customer services and then the police, because obviously, like, you've just been told after that, you would have been told at that point, no, that's not from us. Call the police straight away. But yeah, apart from me stumbling over quite a lot of words in there, I really did like that one. Annoying as I found them, like, yeah. Like, what kind of true crime enthusiast do we think Emily was? Do we think it's like, you can pull my teeth, it's fine. It's like, oh, you don't need to stab me with the ice pick, you can prick me with something else. Because lots of fucking women really get a, like, fucking clit boner for serial killers. I mean, true, they probably wouldn't. But imagine you go to the police and say, like, yo, I may have found some evidence from a serial, like, I may have found evidence about a serial killer. Because, I mean, come on, she had to have got it, like, it's a monthly subscription service, and she got 6 boxes. Hey, I am not one of those kinds of crazies. I admit I'm, like, fucking insane, but I'm not an insane fucker. See, I thought Slim was streaming later, but I can't see him having mentioned it. Ah, so you are here, Dante. Okay. This one is also kinda long, but not as long as the other one. Really? I didn't see you say hey. Oh, yeah. You were late. Boo, hiss, hiss, boo. Maybe Slim isn't streaming tonight. So while looking for so I was early for once. While looking for like stories, I stumbled across like this, I guess, like genre that is talking about weird jobs with weird rules. And like I found at least 3 stories like it. Oh, excuse me. So I'm going to read one of them. Not worth reading all 3. Well, at least tonight anyway. Okay, this is... I worked at a gas station. We had some strange rules. About 3 months ago, I finished high school. I'd recently lost my job. I was in desperate need for money. I had stopped at a gas station to get myself some breakfast. Saw a hiring now flyer on the front door paying $19 an hour for the night shift. I thought this was too good to be true. I made my way to the guy at the front. "Hey, I see you guys are hiring for the night shift," I said. "Yep, the last guy quit because the rules were too hard for him to follow. So we need another night shift worker." "Well, do you mind if I apply for the job?" I asked. "No need to apply. As long as you show up, we'll pay you. Shift starts at 9, ends at 5, he said. All I have to do is show up?" I asked. "Yep, no application required," he said. "Guess I'll be here at 9. And I went to my car, and as I went to my car and got in, I kept thinking to myself, $19 an hour, that's a steal. When I got home, I have to rest as much as I can if I'm going to work the night shift. When it was time to go, I got up, got dressed, and went off to work. When I got there, the same man was still there. He handed me my uniform and gave me a list of rules. "If you follow the rules, you will be fine," he said. "Should be easy enough," I replied. Keep in mind, this gas station was in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by woods. As he left the gas station, I started to read the rules. Rule number 1. If a man with a black suit walks in, compliment his suit and give him a pack of cigarettes for free. If this rule is not followed right, you won't like the outcome. Rule number 2. If you hear a low, groaning moan come from outside the door, duck under the counter and wait until you hear the door open and the groaning stops. Rule number 3. When it's 1:53 a.m, go outside and say, "You look beautiful today," and wait until you see a woman in a white dress appear across the street and then go back inside. She likes it when you compliment her beauty. Rule number 4. If you hear a little girl's laughter outside, run. Lock all the doors, turn off all the lights and hide under the counter until the laughter is gone. If you fail to do so, it will come and get you. Rule number 5. If you hear growls coming from the bathroom, grab a bag of chips off the shelf. I lost it. Grab a bag of chips off the shelf and throw them into the bathroom without looking. If you manage to fail, let's just say you will be the chips. Rule number 6. If you have to use the bathroom at all through the shift, if you have to use the bathroom at all throughout the shift, don't use stall 4 or urinal 2. Rule 7. If a blue minivan pulls into the parking area, Make sure you turn around at all times. Avoid eye contact. If they ask to buy something, say it's on the house. When they leave, make sure you hear the minivan pull off before you turn around. They might just still be there. Rule 8. If the lights randomly go out at any time during your shift, lay down on your back, close your eyes until you hear a demonic scream. Then get up and go turn on the lights. Rule number 9. If you are working and hear tapping coming from the window next to you, keep doing your job and ignore it. It might begin to tap louder. If so, just keep ignoring it. When it stops, you can safely look out of the window. Last but not least, Rule 10. If an old man comes in asking you if you know where his wife is, say, "She isn't here right now. Check here tomorrow night." He will walk off into the woods and you can continue your shift. When I finished reading the rules, I was really confused. I thought this was a joke being played on the new guy to scare him. Then I thought about what the guy had told me about the last guy. That he quit because the rules were too hard. It was already 9:30 and nobody had come yet. That's when a small Ford truck parked itself outside. A woman walked in and bought a bag of chips and paid for the gas for her truck. That's probably going to be the only normal thing to happen tonight, I said to myself. I waited there for a couple of minutes while the buzzing of lights filled my ears. What? Buzzing of lights filled my ears, followed by the sounds of crickets chirping. It sounded peaceful. Then I started thinking about the rules. There's no way those rules are real. An old man won't just come into a gas station in the middle of the night asking for his wife. I decided to get up and start mopping the floor. Might as well do something while I'm here. After all, there's no cell service. While I was mopping the floor, I heard the slightest tap coming from the right of me. I froze. It sounded as if a long fingernail tapped on the window. That's when I remembered Rule 9. If you hear a tapping coming from the window next to you, don't look. I stood there, frozen in fear. Then tap. Another one. I was shaking at this point. Then it started tapping faster. I started to sweat nervously. The taps were getting more aggressive and harder. It sounded like the glass was going to break. I thought whatever was tapping on that window was going to break through and kill me. Then the tapping stopped. I stood there staring at the wet ground for a good 5 minutes before I looked up at the window. There wasn't anything there. I now believed these rules were no joke. I finished mopping the floor and went back to the counter and began reading the rules again. I was sitting at the counter reading a hunting magazine when I heard the bell on the door ring, indicating someone had walked in. I looked up and saw a man wearing a black suit with a fedora on and sunglasses. I remembered Rule 1. "Hello, sir. Nice outfit you got on. Looks really good on you," I told him. "Thanks. My wife made me buy it," he responded. "May I offer you a pack of our finest cigarettes for free?" I asked. "That would be nice," he responded. He took the cigarettes and walked out the store. That wasn't too hard, I thought. About 3 hours later, at about 12:30, Nothing has happened since the guy with the suit. I was getting really bored. At this point. So I got up and went to see if there were any books I could buy. I couldn't find anything but beauty magazines. While I was looking through the shelves, I heard a groaning noise. It sounded as if an old man had broken his hip. I remembered something about this in the rules. I ran over to the counter and hid under it. While I was waiting there, the bell on the door rang, letting me know someone was inside. I could hear heavy breathing mixed with footsteps. Fear had filled me, and I sat under the counter. Fear had filled me, and I sat under the counter as the thing inside the store was looking for me. While waiting, that thing seemed to call out for me. Connor, come out. I need to tell you something, it said. The scariest part of all, that it was calling my name in my mother's voice. It did this for a good 15 minutes before deciding to give up and leave. When I got up from under the counter, there wasn't anything in sight. I continued on with my shift. While sitting there thinking about what had happened, the door opened again. I screamed. It turned out to be a regular customer. Sorry I spooked you, the guy said. You're good, I replied. I was wondering if I could pay for some gas. He asked. Sure thing, I responded. 2 gallons is what I need, he said. All right, that'll be $5.43, I said. He paid for his gas and drove off. After that, I was sitting there bored and wondered what I could do since there wasn't anything I could do. That's when the lights started flickering, and then the lights went out. I was confused for a moment. Then I remembered to get on my back and close my eyes. I was lying there on the ground in the dark. I felt a gush of hot air hit my face. It felt like something was breathing onto my face. I wanted to open my eyes really bad, but I knew if I did, it would be the end of my shift. That's when I felt something warm and slimy go up my leg. It felt like something was getting a taste of its next meal. I refused to open my eyes or move. I was terrified. As long as I didn't move and kept my eyes shut, I would be fine. I felt something drag across my leg. It felt like a claw. I closed my eyes even harder, trying my best to not make a single peep. That's when I heard a loud screech. It sounded like that of a woman with a demonic tone. Then it was quiet. I was so scared to open my eyes. I felt like this thing was trying to trick me that it was gone, so I would open my eyes. I was laying there on the cold, tiled floor with my eyes closed in the dark. I waited there silently for 4 minutes. When I opened my right eye, the coast was clear. I got up and ran to turn on the lights. When I flicked the switch, I could hear the buzzing of the lights again, and I felt relieved that I was able to survive. I sat there staring at the clock. The time was 1:52. I was about to have to do the next rule. When the clock hits 1:53 a.m., I went outside to the middle of the parking lot and said, You look beautiful tonight. I waited there, looking for my cue to go back inside. That's when I saw, under the street lamp across the road, a beautiful, pale lady with black hair and wearing a wedding dress. Once I saw her, I went back inside and looked out the window. She had vanished. That was a really easy rule, I thought to myself. After waiting for a bit, I found a little one-player board game I could play while I'm bored. While I was playing the board game, I heard a loud, demonic-like growl come from the men's bathroom. I fell out of my chair, out of being scared. I ran as fast as I could to grab a bag of chips. While I was panicking to grab the bag of chips, I failed to notice I ran on the wet floor I mopped earlier. I slipped and fell on my back. The pain was unbearable. I could barely even move. I watched as the men's restroom door began to crack open. I knew I wouldn't make it in time to throw the chips into the bathroom. I felt hopeless. All my hard work coming crashing to the ground because of a wet floor. That's when I got the idea. I would try and throw the chips through the gap in the door. I grabbed them, got up, I aimed with my left arm and threw the bag. I saw as the bag went through the gap into the men's bathroom. The door slammed shut and the growling stopped. I went back to the counter and sat there. My back was still aching after hitting the ground so hard. I decided to walk around the store for a little bit to see if it helps ease the pain. Sorry, need a drink. Super Ghost, even if I did say eggplant emoji at the end of every sentence, it wouldn't be that often. Sentence structure is bad on this one. Like, it's my level of bad. Now I feel really guilty for anyone who's had to read my really shit sentences. After I finished walking, I saw out of the corner of my eye headlights to a car. I turned and looked out the window. There was a blue minivan. I ran over to the counter and faced the wall. I heard 3 doors shut. When I heard the jingle of the bell, I heard many squeaky footsteps. It sounded as if they walked through a puddle. As they walked through the store, I heard them pulling stuff off the shelf. I would like to buy this. Their voice had the cracky tone of an old man. You don't need to pay. It's on the house, I said, with a slight stutter in my voice. I heard the jingle of the bells. I heard 3 doors shut again. I heard a car pull off. So I turned around, and there was no one to be seen. I let out a sigh of relief. Yeah, I'm the exact same, brainless. It is dyslexia. Like, it's annoying, but yeah. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. For me, this is like, I like scary stories. I have bad dyslexia. Like, I can read it in my mind, but reading it out loud gets very difficult for me. And I'm naturally bad at writing stuff anyway, so like I get the vibe. I'll try to go for what actually is a good story regardless of good grammar, and I'll try to correct it on the fly as long as I understand it's bad. Sometimes I don't and just read it out and it is what it is. But yeah, I don't like the idea of gatekeeping good stories because they're not like grammatically perfect. That's what editors are for. Excuse me. It was about 3:34 a.m. I was almost asleep. I woke up to the sound of bells jingling. An old man with a long white beard. I was almost asleep. I woke up to the sound of bells jingling and saw a little old man with a long white beard. He looked like he hadn't eaten for months. "Have you seen my wife anywhere?" he asked. I thought for a moment. "No, I haven't." "Come back and check tomorrow." He stared at me for a few seconds, then walked out of the store and into the woods. I was near the end of my shift. It was 4:30 a.m. I was about to take my money and never come back. I was staring at the clock when I heard something terrifying. A little girl's laughter. I scrambled to lock all the doors and turn off all the lights. Once I locked the doors, I shut off the lights and hid under the counter. Then I remembered, while I was scrambling to turn off the lights and lock the doors, I failed to get the back door. I froze in fear after realizing I'd forgotten the back door. I heard a loud bang hit the front door. It sounded like someone or something was trying to force their way in. Then it went to the window, and I heard another bang. It was silent for the next minute. Then, out of nowhere, a third bang came from the back door. Then I heard the door open. I heard heavy footsteps inside the office room. When I heard it enter the store area, I heard the same little girl laugh. This time, it appeared more demonic. "You can't hide from me." I laid there under the counter helplessly for the next 27 minutes. As it looked for me, I heard its heavy footsteps make its way towards the counter. I was extremely terrified, shaking uncontrollably, and tears began to run down my face. As it was about to find me, I heard a loud noise, a beep of my watch. I had forgotten that I'd set an alarm on my watch for when it was 5 a.m. Then I heard a demonic screech. That of many creatures mixed together. I had done it. I was able to survive my shift. I got up from under the counter and made my way out the door. I waited outside for the guy to come back. When he eventually arrived, I took my payment and left without saying a word. If you ever find a job and it's too good to be true, don't apply. It might just be the last job you ever take. And that's the end of that one. Right, well, unfortunately it seems like Slim isn't going to be streaming tonight. I mean, yeah, as long as you follow the rules, you're fine, but like, things happen. And like, what if they can do 2 of those events at the same time? Like, what if at 1:53, when you're meant to be out there complimenting the girl, you having to be hiding under the counter? That would be terrifying. Oh, you're right, Clockwork. No, I was just looking for another short one to read. I've got a short one. That would be hilarious. Or, hear me out here, right? The wedding dress ghost and the demon little girl join forces and kick the butts of the mini ghost people to steal their minivan, because they're the mum and daughter and they should have the minivan. Right. This is called Lockdown Scares Me. Lockdowns are freaky, though most of the people in my class took it as a joke. When a lockdown extends past 5 minutes, however, people start speculating the worst. We would all jump when the automated announcement played. I can still remember it, burned into my memory from that day. Lockdown, lockdown, lock the doors, stay away from the windows, lockdown, lockdown, the announcement would say before a series of beeps and then silence, only to start up again 1 minute later. I don't know what we expected. People messaged their friends from all over the school and spread the message to the people beside them. Gunmen? No. No gunshots. Not yet. Drugs bust? Nothing new. But they don't lock down the school for that. Did someone bring a weapon? Perhaps. But if we aren't hearing gunshots, it can't be a gun. Meaning the constable could take them on. Speculations went back and forth for a few minutes. I remember halfway through being whispered a new idea, the intercom cut out mid-sentence. A crackling noise remained for a few seconds before silencing completely. What I heard next chills me to the bones just to remember it. First, it was a scream, a cliché horror scream, as if there was a bloody murder. Then it cut off. There were the sounds of bones crunching before a strange silence fell. You could hear the blood hit the tiles in the hallway. After a few seconds, there was a undescribable sound. A squelching sound almost. It was pulsating though, the sound, in both volume and pitch. There was a low hum that echoed through the school, which was followed by the sound of tearing metal. The hum and squelching continued for another 10 minutes. It was a fear I couldn't describe, shared by all that was in there that day. When it was all over, we were given a week off school. No explanation. When we left the classroom, however, there was blood and some sort of bodily matter everywhere. It coated the walls and lockers as though someone had attached a corpse to a powerful drill and simply let it spin until all the parts flew off like a disc going too fast. It was the French teacher. Was being the key word. Not only that, but there were marks on the lockers, like animal scratches, that tore the metal as though slicing through a pop can with a sharp knife. There were no tracks to or from the scene. Not a day goes by without nightmares of what I experienced. Mostly what I heard. I wish it was a gunman. I wish it was a crazy fuck with an AR-15. I wish I could tell myself that it was a crazy man with an AR-15 and a bunch of strange sounds. If I accept that it is anything else, I'm accepting that whatever it was wasn't human, and I'd rather not believe that. There you go. I think so. Although one of the comments did go like, oh, an joking, SCP spotted at a local high school. Like, could be. But yes, I'm going to call it that for the night. Yep. Just get a blanket, assume the fetal position, and everything will be okay. I mean, it won't be. But, you'll be a nice hot pocket ready for the monster's next meal. Yay! Right. On that one though, I'm going to go. Dude, you know it can't be a flurfer. A flurfer in a place of education? Like that would happen. yeah, I am going to take advantage of maybe getting an early night. I probably won't because sleep evades me. But yeah. Oh, and also, Slim's not streaming tonight. He's not feeling very well. But hopefully, if he's streaming tomorrow... Actually, no, I don't think I will be able to do that now. No, okay, what is it tomorrow? Friday. If Pip is doing her game stream or something, I should be able to unveil my new hair. Because I've decided to go a new colour. So I'm not going to be having green hair now. So, yeah. That should be interesting. Right, so... night everyone. Yeah, night. Have a good one wherever you are. Bye.